everybody. Welcome to 500 Open Tabs. I'm Hannah Hillam.
And I'm Josie Azzam.
Hey, Josie.
Hello.
Josie. Sorry, I said Josie. My bad.
No, that's okay
bad.
because your sister-in-law is Josie. I'm Josie. Yeah. All Josies and Josies are accepted. So happy to be here.
I'll do my best. Thank you for being here. You're stepping in for Kaveh as he undertakes the big move to his new place. And
Kaveh helped me move like 5 months ago, so this is I didn't think I'd have to repay him so soon. But this is
he
much
always
easier.
Comes for collecting his dues. Just kidding. That's nothing about him is like that. But yeah, I'm really glad you were able to step in and be here. I really enjoyed. I've never done an episode with you. I've only ever heard you do an episode on my podcast, which was kind of odd. For those of you who are longtime listeners, will remember that Josie and my sister-in-law Josie were co-hosts back in the summer of last year of 2024 because I think it was the first episode you guys both wrote in.
That's right. We both had no idea what the podcast was about, and so we just did our best, and then we became a catchphrase, and that was the best possible scenarios for us. I mean, that worked out great for us.
It was funny because, like, by Josie, I was like, I'm sorry, you're fully a meme now. And she was like, whatever. I'm fine with it. But that's our catchphrase, keep it Josie. And, it just so happens that we know two very awesome Josies. So on that note, will you go first?
I will go first. I will say, too, at the end of every episode, it catches me off guard every single time. Every time you guys say, keep it Josie, I go like, huh. Like, so when the
60 episodes in and you're like, ah! You never get used to it.
Truly, I never get used to it. It never happens. Yeah. And poor Kaveh, we have such a parasocial relationship where I won't talk to him for like a month. And he'll be like, how are you going? And I'm like, I felt like I was talking to you yesterday. And I was like, oh, no, I'm just listening to the pod.
Isn't it weird how that happens?
I know. I feel bad for you guys.
No, I do. You know how many parasocial relationships I have with other podcasters? I know way too much about people who I've met in person. And I'm like, oh, I know everything about you dating 10 years back. So that's just the world we live in now. So, I mean.
It's a friendly, open place. I think that's better than para-nothing relationships.
I agree. I also prefer it because that means I don't have to like introduce my personality to somebody right off the bat. You know what I mean? Where it's like, my whole thing. You've already accepted me as who I am, so I don't have to be like, by the way, I'm insane,
You took my entire e-course on all of the things I like, all the things I don't like. So you know it, top to bottom. So I expect
the 3 jokes I tell? Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, let's get into it. I want to hear what you have. What have you brought?
Okay, so last time when I hosted, I said that I am incredibly neurotypical. I apologize. And so I don't have any tabs.
Everyone just turns the podcast off.
I
like,
know. No, They're like, it's going to be boring. It's going to be about taxes. It's not.
Actually, that'd be great. I would love help with taxes right now. What if you just did my taxes? The whole episode is just me kind of crying and filling out my taxes.
I'd be like, this one's got ketchup on it. What is this one?
Okay, it's actually blood. Not ketchup.
So last time I had 3 ideas of what I was going to do it about. And so I'm cashing in on my second one. So if you ever need me back, I've got literally only one more. So I won't even spoil what that third one is.
Okay, I'll save it.
Save it. It's interesting because the 3 ideas are all just kind of imperialist themed. So the first one was about the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
And this one is, what do you know, if anything, about the Napoleonic Empire?
Actually, not very much.
Okay,
that is a blind spot.
This is not going to be a deep. This is not the e-course on Napoleonic history. This is not a Ridley Scott production. I understand that when I talk about Napoleon, I'm a deep lover of Napoleon. My name is Josephine. When I was like a teenager, I got really into it because I was trying to I'm named after a Swedish queen who is related to Napoleon in a way I won't get into. But anyway, so I just know
full. I would love to hear that sometime because I genuinely am very interested in knowing how that ties into Napoleon. But I do know that the Josephine was his wife or his mistress.
His wife. So it was his first wife and married for love. And what I find so interesting about Napoleon, and it's going to tie into my tab, is that he is 100% self-made. Like his family was like had a great name, like an ancestral last name, but they were pretty poor. He like had to do some fraud to get into military school.
Who among us? You know? Look, I cheated my way into military school.
100%. Like he's definitely had a roommate. You know what I mean? Like that's what I appreciate about him. Like he's delivered coffee. Like he really worked his way.
He's waited a table.
All the way to the top and then fell all the way to the bottom. And I find that whole trajectory very interesting. But what is more interesting to me, which I don't feel like anybody knows about or talks about. So Napoleonic history, you can kind of find things about.
Yeah.
Napoleon had 7 siblings.
Wait, what?
Okay.
Oh, so he... Okay. I wonder how loud their house was. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
Like,
no, definitely. And it's like French and Italian. Like, so it's really loud. It's like loud.
And like probably tense.
And they're all really smart, which is probably even worse. Yeah.
Dude, I've been in a lot of houses like that. My in-laws. Shout out to Josie. And a bunch of smart people. And there's 7 of them. So, yeah, I know how that can go. Wow. Okay, first of all, I didn't know he was like poor. He started off like nothing. That's wild to me because you'd never hear about that ever with like these kind of guys. They're always from big families or whatever.
Well, to that end, so what I find so interesting about Napoleon's siblings is essentially he ascended to the imperial throne. He essentially created it for himself.
Right.
Crowned himself, everything. And then he's conquering all these territories. And what he has to do, similar to kind of an Alexander the Great, is he has to install people in these territories that he's taken over, that he trusts. He's also trying to create an imperial dynasty. And so who better to pick to be the king of Spain or the king of Holland or the king of Naples or, you know, any of these places than one of his 7 siblings.
Nepo babies right there. Look at that.
Hundo. So he's just trying to like control, and he knows that they will follow exactly what he said because they all grew up from nothing too. They're not
right.
There's no divine right. There's no like
where does he fall in his siblings? Is he oldest, youngest? Where is he falling in there?
He is second oldest.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so on the older end.
So it would be really, really boring to go into like this was Joseph and he was born and then he did this and like this is Eliza and she. You know, I was like no. What we're gonna do is the fun fact edition about each of Napoleon's 7 siblings.
Dude, you're like mainlining my favorite kind of, like thank you for bringing me this. Like I love this kind of stuff, like the behind the scenes, what made somebody who they are, because you are formed by your family, whether you like it or not. And I want to know where Napoleon came from. I mean, like I keep picturing them like being annoying to each other, like siblings would. I don't know.
Oh, and they would like fully not listen to him. Like that's what's really fun. We'll get into some of them who are like, actually, no, I'm not doing that. And yeah, it's not like this is George III commanding his siblings to go do something. Like this is just a guy that you grew up with on an island who like just, you know, shot up. This is like if your brother's Justin Bieber and now he's topping the charts and then wants you to like be his producer and you're like, no,
you're like, I don't want to do that.
No.
I like the George III shout out. That was fun.
Always sneaking it into conversation.
Love that. That's one of the eras like what we're talking about is the Georgian era and I don't know much about. You know, it's kind of a blind spot for me.
This is Regency era, which I do know a lot about.
See, that's what I don't know about.
It's just high waists and high times. That's all.
See, I stop with the death of Elizabeth I.
Anyway, okay. So, I mean, you and I could literally just talk about
forever
the Tudor family for just like, you know, 100 years.
Forever and ever.
We would have 100 years war, but it's just us talking about it.
Oh, who's going to kill Joan of Arc? Me or you?
Okay, so the fun fact, I'm going to start with the fun fact and then I'm going to get to how we got there. I'm going to Tarantino it.
Yes.
So his older brother's Joseph.
Okay.
Before Napoleon rose to power, he was like a lawyer. He married like a merchant's daughter, super normo. And then his brother rises to power and he's like, okay, you are going to be, first he was the king of Naples. And then after that, he's like, you're going to be king of Spain.
He's just handing these out.
He's handing these out. And here's the problem with this. It's like Napoleon's not just installing them. And
one
being
of the
like,
many problems, by the way. This is insane.
It's a problem probably every 3 months. I mean, for years and years. It's just problems after problems. But he installs these people being like, I want you to institute the Napoleonic Code. I want you to do conscriptions so they join my massive army to march on Russia. Like, you're going to be really unpopular no matter what you do. And then what's also awful is, like, they have no ruling experience. They weren't like governors. They weren't like military commanders. So doomed to fail. So all these people are going to be doomed to fail, which makes it extra good.
Perfect historical drama just brewing. So
Like,
wait, really quick.
Yeah.
Is this and this is a dumb question, but pre or post Revolution, French Revolution? It's post. No, pre. Post. Okay.
Napoleon was a part of the French Revolution.
Oh, okay. Oh, because he came after the royalty, and okay, I see.
Yeah, exactly. No. It's actually, I mean, and then when you start thinking about like American history as like coinciding, like there's a lot of stuff with like the Louisiana Purchase, and you start thinking about that stuff happening at the same time as Napoleon, because he sold essentially huge swaths of America in order to fund all these military expeditions. So, you know, like once you start like thinking how these things are connected, then all of a sudden you realize who's in the same timeline and who's alive at the same time. Yeah,
Napoleon sold us that.
Napoleon sold us. That was the Louisiana Purchase was Napoleon.
No one ever talks about that. That's absurd. Oh, wait, my mind is kind of blown right now. I'm going to be honest. I can't stop thinking about that. Okay.
All right. So Joseph becomes king of Spain. He does not speak French. He doesn't know anything about being a ruler. It's a disaster from the top. So after Waterloo, he has to flee Europe. He sneaks onto a ship, and the ship is searched multiple times, but he makes it to America.
What? Okay.
So Joseph Bonaparte,
it all roll over me. I'm like, oh, I thought sorry, it sounded like you said Joseph Bonaparte, and that made me want to laugh too. Napoleon Bonaparte.
God, what a good Halloween costume, just to be.
I'm Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yeah, and everyone's like Bonaparte, and then you have a little button that just goes. Yeah,
one of those little like recorders you can put. Yeah.
Or from your previous episode, you have someone who's a professional, butt flautist.
Or if we can find that recording that Kaveh mentioned him and his cousin made, we could use that.
Dude. That's the name on the tape that just says Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh, beautiful.
I will say the only thing my husband knows about Napoleon, besides the multiple things I tell him about it, he's like, only thing I know is Napoleon from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He's like, that's my entire relationship with that man.
That honestly, I think same with my husband.
Yeah.
I remember that most people, I think, just history in general. And you know what?
Wait, I have it. I didn't plan on showing this, but I'm like, it's right there. I just noticed it. Like,
is that a portrait of Napoleon?
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm looking at is a shrink wrap portrait of Napoleon. It's massive. That thing is taller than you. Josie, I feel like I'm learning so much about you. Where
this hung in my room when I was 13.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I've kept it.
Whoa.
This whole
so this
time.
is like an old obsession.
Oh yeah. No, when they were doing all like the press for the Napoleon movie with Ridley Scott, I was like, this is my time. Like, this is the only time people are talking about something I care about.
Anyway, Joseph, he went to America.
Went to America. He buys a house in New Jersey. Okay. It's a mansion. It's huge. It's
Napoleon's brother, Napoleon Bonaparte's brother, moves to New Jersey.
Immediately after Waterloo. Like,
I'm going to cry.
He went from the King of Spain to a Jersey resident. And this is not even the fun fact. This is not even the... No, there's more. Okay. One snowy afternoon, the ex-King of Spain was hunting alone in the woods near his house when he spotted some strange tracks on the ground. They looked like the tracks of a 2-footed donkey. Bonaparte noticed that one foot was slightly larger than the other. The tracks ended abruptly, as if the creature had flown away.
You are not about to tell me this. No.
He stared at the tracks for a long moment, trying to figure out what that strange animal might be. At that moment, Bonaparte heard a strange hissing noise.
No.
Turning, he found himself face to face with a large winged creature with a horse-like head and bird-like legs. Astonished and frightened, he froze and stared at the beast, forgetting he was carrying a rifle. And for a moment, neither of them moved. Then the creature hissed at him, beat its wings, and flew away. When he reported the incident to a friend later that day, Bonaparte was told that he had just seen the Jersey Devil.
Jersey Devil! just made my day. You just made my day. So let me revise. So Napoleon Bonaparte's older brother, Joe, moved to New Jersey and promptly witnessed one of the first-hand accounts of the Jersey Devil, the cryptid.
Yes. This is like 1820.
Amazing. How did I not know about this? Okay. I love him. I love Joe. I want to draw a whole thing about him. Do you imagine a comic? Okay. That's the most Jersey you can get.
It's actually unfair that he just got to like emigrate there and then like immediately get to see the Jersey Devil. Some people live there their whole lives and don't get that opportunity.
No, not fair.
So it might be downhill from here, but that was pretty
Joe.
great.
Sorry, you got that got me. Okay.
That was fun. So then he has another brother, Lucien.
Okay.
And I think being like the next youngest brother, like right underneath Napoleon. So it's like Joseph and then Napoleon, then Lucien. Lucien was the one who was the most disobedient, essentially, and like couldn't give a shit.
Not a good combo. Like very close together brothers.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first person he married the illiterate sister of an innkeeper. It was his landlord's daughter. Oh. And he married her like while Napoleon is rising up to power. And his brother's like, no, couldn't you have like waited? Like I could have arranged something with some like nobility. And, you know, lucky for Napoleon, she died in childbirth at like, you know, a couple years later.
Luckily. Oh, phew.
So you think now, and she dies in 1800. Napoleon is only 4 years away from being full emperor. At this point, he's like first consul, and he's like ahead. Maybe not quite first. No, he might be. I don't know. Doesn't matter. He's like way up there. And his brother's like, no, I'm gonna marry this like widow instead. Like I'm gonna marry somebody else. He just does whatever he wants. And Napoleon gave him an ultimatum to get divorced. And he basically was like, nope. And then he just exiled himself.
Oh, wow. I can feel like as the oldest sibling, I can feel the frustration through the ages, like traveling. That would have made me so mad. I'd be like, just for a second, help me out and get married to someone I need you to get married to.
Right. Like this is how we form alliances. This is how I get you like into a place and get you embedded. And he's like, no, I'm going to do an innkeeper who I met for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to do like whomever I want. And no, you can't tell me what to do. And like, he just never helped.
Leaving.
He never helped.
I know exactly what this would be like. Okay. Why am I mad at him? I shouldn't be. I'm like taking out my older sister stuff on this person. Anyway.
You should, because it's like, this is when he's fully, you know, owning one of the largest empires in world history. And you're like, no, I'm busy.
It's like, sorry, I'm going to leave. It's like, bro. Okay. So that's Lucien.
Yeah. And then we got Eliza, who her only fun fact is, so he put her in charge of Tuscany, because at this point Italy's not a unified kingdom, so it's like all these little kingdoms and all this good. That era I don't know too much about.
Me neither.
Yeah, I know. It's like whenever people talk about Bohemia, I'm like, I know where it is.
Don't know.
Not much else.
Same with Germany, like Prussia and Bavaria. I'm like, I don't know what
I did always play as Bismarck in Civilizations.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought up Civ. I was about to get into Civ later, so I'm glad we're getting into it now. You played as Bismarck.
I played as Bismarck. I love being called Chancellor. I love it.
I mean, yeah, it's you heard it here first. Josie loves being called Chancellor, which I'm going to call you Chancellor Josie. You're the Chancellor of this podcast.
Honestly, like my like lungs inflated when you did that. I was like, look at me.
Oh, well.
Chancellor.
I guess they still call the leader Chancellor over there, huh?
Do they? Yeah.
Chancellor Merkel or Angela. Anyway, I always played as the Celts, if that tells you anything.
That tells me everything I need to know.
Yeah,
what were their strengths?
Religion and culture, and I just liked it because Boudica spoke Welsh, and she spoke an old version of it, so they did their reading and figured it out. Anyway, so I like Boudica. I also just love her. She's dope. I'd play her and Poland. Poland was fun, and for no reason other than I got randomly assigned them once. I had a lot of fun.
Poland?
Yeah.
I'm like, you're just going to get invaded over and over and over.
I know. Poor Poland. But in my game, yeah, they got invaded. I didn't win.
Yeah, Germany was science and military. So I was like,
right.
That's how you win the game.
That is how you win the game. Military, I'm terrible at military, but yeah, the science victory, you gotta go all in on that. Korea's fun to play for that reason too.
It was fun to be Elizabeth I. I did enjoy that. That's a great time. Exploration.
Would you like to make a trade agreement with England? Did I do the voice? Oh,
good times.
I played. Do you want to know how many hours of that game I played? Over 350 hours.
Respect.
No. Mom,
How'd you
what did
keep
you
track?
do during the pandemic? I played a game for 300 hours. Because Steam tells me. I had a friend, my friend David, would because it's public, he'd text me every once in a while with just, all he would text me was the hour. How many hours I'd played. I'd be like, leave me alone. Anyway.
Excellent
Continue.
girling. I do remember there was a time where Spotify was publishing my song listens to my Facebook. It was early days. And I had a friend text me and she's like, wow, share 5 hours.
And you're like, wow, I thought you were my real friend. So no, I had to turn that off because I was like, there is no way anyone's going to see what I'm listening to. Even though it's not embarrassing.
Horrifying. Ugh. No one needs to know what's happening in here.
No. No,
this is private.
Okay,
Eliza Bonaparte. The only thing
on.
that's interesting about her, so she becomes Queen of Tuscany, or I don't know, Duchess of Tuscany, Queen of
Probably
let's say
Duchess.
Queen. Let's say Queen, and so what she's in charge of is the Carrara marble mines or quarry, I should say.
Ooh.
Carrara marble, which everyone knows
I've
is
never heard of that.
Oh, you haven't? So
No.
the Statue of David, Michelangelo's David is Carrara marble. It is, and really fancy countertops.
Ooh, so it's
Carrara marble
up there. It's good marble.
But she was super clever, and she was like, okay, if I'm gonna have exports of my marble go up, I need to create a really fancy museum in Paris for people to put these statues in. And at that point, there were a lot of really small academies of statues, academy of painting, whatever. And she's like, no, we need to bring it together. We need it to be even bigger. We're going to establish the Académie des Beaux-Arts. Okay. So that's the big second to the Louvre museum in Paris that she's like, and then that way there's going to be this influx of people who want to sculpt again in this traditional way. So she was boosting her own economy by creating it was a closed market.
That's insane. That makes sense though. And everyone wants to, she fully pretty much jump-started a whole artistic industry again.
We're used to art paying nothing and meaning nothing, so we're just
not back then.
Not back then.
No, I could be somebody's little artist person. And they would just keep me at their place and I'd paint stuff. That's the dream.
Yeah, you're like Medici's. Do you need a new uniform for your guys? I'm sketch it. Here
we go. I'm here. Oh, amazing, incredible. I would love to go back to that time. That's how bad it is now. I would love to go back in time when I would probably get murdered, but hey.
Oh, you'd have such a charming story where you dress as a man,
You're
but everyone kind of knows. But it's a
these
sexual
things
thing.
Are there, and it's you're like, that man has got boobs. There's no way I'm hiding these. But yeah, that's a fun idea. That's a fun idea.
I'd have just been a nun. Every time I'm like, nun, 100%, nun me up.
Nun. Yeah, because I get to illuminate manuscripts and not get murdered and raped. Anyway, go on. Eliza did that. I love that.
Eliza did that. So then we have Louis.
Okay.
There's so many. So he's almost the opposite of Lucien, where he becomes King of Holland. And in his introduction speech, essentially, I don't know if this is the introduction speech, but very early on, he's really trying to learn Dutch. He's really trying. So sweet, right?
Good for him.
He mixes up the word king and the word rabbit. And I looked this up and then I was like, I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce this. And so he calls himself the Rabbit of Holland. And everyone's so charmed by it. Everyone's like, what a sweetheart. He tried. What a child. Yay.
He failed up.
He failed up. He became incredibly popular to the degree that he was actually telling Napoleon, actually, this thing you're trying to institute would really be bad for the people. And, I don't think we should do that. And, that's not the culture and blah, blah, blah. So he actually kind of created tension between him and Napoleon by serving the interest of the Dutch people.
It sounds like he's a solid guy.
Yeah.
King Rabbit and his people. Yeah, I could see Napoleon being like, I wish you could be somewhere in the middle of Lucien and Louis,
Well, he was a little not gross. I guess back then that wasn't gross, but he married Josephine's daughter. So it's like his step niece. So, like they're not related, but the age difference is there. And then, but then their child became Napoleon III, if you know anything about the 1850s.
I do. I know that like another Napoleon showed up at one point, and it was somehow related, but it wasn't Napoleon's direct. Yeah. Weird.
Like how you said you lose interest after Elizabeth I. I get to 1821.
God.
I'm like,
nothing.
The outfits get real bad after that.
Oh, they get horrible. They don't get much better. I don't know. It's tough. It's like, I look how you go with the outfits, because I'm kind of the same way. It's like, this is visually not pleasing. I don't care about
it's those
these
big
people
triangular,
at all.
poofy things.
Yep.
And
the big wigs. I'm not into the wigs.
I don't like the wigs. I don't like most Louis. Yeah, I'm not into it.
All 14 of them can. Oh wait, Louis. See, I don't know anything about France. Louis the 14th.
I think we got to 16. Well, there was more after that. I mean, anyway, it's fine.
Whatever.
Too many. Literally, whatever. It's all made up. Like they just made it up.
Okay. Well, this Louis, Rabbit Louis.
Well, what's also very funny is that so Louis marrying Hortense and having Napoleon III, but their marriage was completely loveless. And so there is a lot of gossip that Napoleon III's father was not Louis, but it's just gossip. There's no confirmed. There's no 23andMe on that.
They hadn't even gotten started long enough to go out of business. Man, I would have loved to see who the dad was. Because here's the thing, they probably had a bunch of people like spreading rumors. That's like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this guy's not legit. Of course. That's
it's like, I'm sure there was a Ronan Farrow situation back then where they were just like,
ooh, he's an identical twin of Frank Sinatra. Dude, that's the funniest part. It's like, you look at Ronan Farrow, you're like, oh, there is no doubt about it.
Has anyone heard him sing? I mean,
why would he ever do that?
Why would he ever do that? He's a respected journalist. He works very hard.
He doesn't dabble in the arts. No, but like you see him, you're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Woody Allen's your dad. Okay, whatever. He wins
either way, so he's fine.
Exactly.
Speaking of beautiful people, the next one is Pauline Bonaparte.
Okay.
Pauline Bonaparte.
Pauline.
I'm not gonna lie, my screen name in middle school on AOL Messenger was Pauline something. Like, big fan of this whole family.
Dude, you're a nerd in the same way that I was a nerd in worse ways. Okay, I'll tell you after we record. It was just embarrassing, but that's awesome. You're like a history nerd. Pauline, that's a good song by what's her name?
I was on the History Channel message boards. Like I was. Were you there too?
Nope. I was fully in the Lord of the Rings fan fiction category of the internet.
I was in the Beatles fan fiction era of the internet.
I feel like I'm starting to like piece you together as a person.
I wish it was legitimate forms of nerdism. I wish I was a Doctor Who fan. I wish I was an anime fan. I'm just out here all the way.
There's enough of those. We need somebody to write fan fiction. Was the fan fiction, were the Beatles kissing, or were they like?
No, it was a really good one about lovely Rita Metermaid and where she came from. It was like really good.
I love that.
It was good.
Mine was not good. It was like I was really interested in like I wouldn't say Anglo-Saxon, but like Old English and stuff. And I was like, that's what all the Rohan is based on. So I got reading all this Old English stuff and like Beowulf, and then I was like, I'm gonna write my own Lord of the Rings based. Anyway, it was like a proto Tolkien type of like I wish I were smarter so I could write a legitimately like inspired by Old English fan fiction of Lord of the Rings. Anyway.
But you have to remember that when he did that, he was like fully a professor in his like 60s. Like
I was like, I need to learn languages so I can make up my own language. Anyway, stuff like that, where it was just like, I'm 13. I need to stop.
I have algebra to do.
Yeah, I have algebra to fail. Okay.
I failed calculus twice.
You did,
and then
made it to calculus.
Well, that's a long story, but I failed calculus twice, and then I got a B the third time, if you can believe it. Like, even though I've already taken it twice, so that's when you were hinting that your tab was going to be over our heads, and I was like, please don't make it like science or math.
Oh no, I would no. I would fail again. Don't worry, mine's history. It's just complex. Anyway.
Oh, I'm so excited. Well, let me tell you about Pauline. So she was beautiful.
Your fave.
She was by far, like everyone said, she was the pretty sibling. Essentially, she's like, if this is the Bennett family, she's the Jane, like everyone acknowledges that this is the pretty one. And so what happens with her is like, she is actually pretty chill. The only thing that happened with her that was scandalous, she had like a lot of affairs and she was just fun and having a good time. And,
Look.
but there, yeah.
Fun.
Who
wasn't? She just got caught.
She was the most fun. But what was most fun about her is that there's a very famous sculpture of her that is nude. It's semi-nude. Like I think her like bottom half is covered by Canova. And at this time, there was this kind of popular thing to do where you took a famous or a real famous person's face, and then you put it on the body of a god or goddess.
Okay.
So it's not them, it's her as Venus. So that way it's respectful.
It's not wow.
But hilariously, you have to look it up at some point, either now or later, because this is contemporary with George Washington. Someone did this with George Washington where they put George Washington's face on the body of Zeus. And they like fully hide it at the Smithsonian. It's like behind a staircase. Like it is fully hidden.
I'm looking it up and YouTube, people watching YouTube, you have to go look at this. This is fully George Washington with like this ripped Greek body.
So pleased.
Oh, amazing. Look at him.
He hated it.
I'm sure he did.
Of course he did.
I would have been so embarrassed. First of all, he's like, I don't want to be president anyway. And also,
I don't want to be a
now
god. Yeah.
I don't want you to put me as like a Greek god. Oh.
Mm-mm. So I always like associate when I think of Napoleon Bonaparte, I always think of that statue because it's like the same mode. It was the same trend at the time.
I'm going to write a fan fiction about Zeus, George Washington, and Pauline and their statues. I don't know.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is good. We're going to come away with a lot of fan fiction at the end of this.
We are, yeah.
Actually, this is a good time to mention this. The whole reason I got into Napoleon is I was given essentially a fan fiction book that was written in the 50s. It's called Desiree, and it's about the girl that Napoleon almost married. And Joseph married her sister. So like they were kind of hanging around them at the same time. And then what happens is Desiree ends up marrying one of Napoleon's marshals.
Oh.
Okay, we're going to keep going here for a second.
Yeah.
That marshal becomes the king of Sweden.
Oh.
Because the king of Sweden at that time had no children. And he was like, how do I make sure that Sweden does not get invaded by Napoleon? I'm going to take one of his marshals and I'm going to make a completely new family, the Bernadotte family. The king of Sweden to this day is a descendant of that family line.
Okay, I might need to read that book. That sounds
good. Oh, it's so saucy. It's very 50s, and it's really good. Next up is another sister, Caroline. Okay. Napoleon always said she was the smartest one.
I've heard about Caroline, and I can't remember why. Go on, tell me.
Well, I'm not going to get too much into her life, because what's much more interesting is her son.
Her son?
I was like, Caroline's very interesting. I mean, basically, she was very ambitious, and she was very smart. She was the Queen of Naples. And her husband was one of Napoleon's marshals. He actually negotiated with Napoleon's enemies at one point. So they they were just that ambitious that they were like, how do we protect our own shit? Like, not great. So I thought the son, I said fun fact edition only. So we're skipping over the politics and we're going into the fun facts. So her son, I don't know how to pronounce this. Achille, I don't know. Achille.
Achilles. It's like from Achilles or whatever.
Achille Murat. I took French. It's not a big deal.
Well, I did too, and I don't remember anything except for Louis. The Louis. And Versailles. And the word for ham. And I don't know why.
Chambon?
Yeah.
Jambon?
Yes. Yep. and I don't even eat ham. So that's my memory of French. So this guy could be called jambon, and I wouldn't even bat an eye. So anyway, so jambon, the son of this lady.
So the son of this lady. So they're after Napoleon's fall, they are exiled. They move away. I think they're in Austria. I don't know where they are. But anyway, when he turns 21, he basically emancipates himself, and he's like, I want to emigrate to the United States.
What, does he find the Mothman? Is that what's happening?
Not quite.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm like, where's the more, like, if Jersey's such an American place to move, what's an even more American place to move than New Jersey?
Texas.
Even more American.
Florida.
No.
Sorry, I just shook the entire desk. I just got so excited. Okay, so we've got a Bonaparte in Jersey, seeing cryptids, and then we've got another one in Florida.
Absolutely. So he emigrated to the United States. First, he stopped in Washington, D.C., like you do, and then he became friends with a congressman from Florida. And this congressman is like, you should move to Florida. It's like a new territory because it had been only acquired from Spain in 1821. Like, this is pretty fresh. So he's like, you can get land.
It's full of monsters, giant lizards. It's fine. You're going to love it.
The heat can't be described.
Feels like you're swimming when you walk outside. It's good. Oh, and the hurricanes. Just wait till you see one of those. It's the best.
You don't want to live with your dumb uncle in Jersey. You want to strike out on your own in my congressional district.
Yes, and you might die, but hey.
So he settled
moves
in
to Florida.
St. Augustine. For those who are listening from St. Augustine, go visit the house.
The first city in America.
And then he married.
The first European city, sorry.
Is it?
Yep. Yeah. I think it's the oldest
fact.
European city in America. Yeah.
Oh,
I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not.
But you know what? That makes sense for him. He's like, I was once the Prince of Naples. I'm
going to move to the Naples of Florida.
Well, he actually names his property like an anagram for Naples. It's super lame. It's like Laponali or something dumb. He's lame.
It's pretty unoriginal.
But two more fun facts about him very quickly is that he marries the great-grandniece of George Washington.
What? Weird. Okay.
I guess, that's like, there's probably a couple of them. Everyone had 10 kids, so I feel like that's like not that hard
Washington,
to do.
Fun fact, did not have any biological children.
So there was going to be no descendants for them to cash in on.
He had stepchildren from Martha's first marriage.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Actually, a fun fact about Napoleon is that the way he found out that Josephine was infertile and not him, because they weren't having any children, is Caroline, way back up on the dock, Caroline convinced him to have an affair, like to have a mistress. And she's like, if you can get her pregnant, it means it's not you.
What a good sister.
Great sister. And he did. So that's why he divorced Josephine.
Oh.
And that was kind of the beginning of the end, actually. Yeah.
Should have stuck with Josephine. Made one of his nephews the next person or whatever. I don't know.
I know.
What a weird upstart dynasty he created. It's just like, okay, here it is. Anyway, go on. So
I know
he married George Washington's niece.
In Tallahassee. And then he became best friends with Ralph Waldo Emerson.
What? It's like there's like historical collisions happening in my brain right now that just don't make sense. You know what I mean? Because I think I just assumed that Napoleon or like the Bonapartes are just way older than they are, and they're not. They were around for all of this.
I had a great book as a child that was like it was a National Geographic book that was just the timeline of human existence.
Ooh.
And what it would do is it would just go year by year, and it would explain what was happening all over the world within that 50-year span or 30-year span. So you'd learn about what was happening in China, India, Arabia, South America, North America.
Cool.
It was a great way to combat like Western views of history where you're like, in the Middle Ages they were all faffing about, but like, do you know everybody else was doing like really great?
Like this person's golden age was happening while these people, well, you know what, Alyssa, now is as good a time as any, our editor Alyssa made a timeline of our episodes.
You mentioned it in a previous episode, and I was like, I gotta jump into it. Yeah, we were
don't
talking about
think
the
we-
70s, like what happened
right.
simultaneously with
I don't
the
even
Tippy
remember.
Hedron.
Oh, so right now, Tippy. Oh, Tippy.
Tippy.
Right now, the year is what? 1820 something that you're talking about?
Yeah, this range is like 1800 to 1820.
Yeah. So Princess Caribou, this is from an early episode 3, and then Jonathan the Tortoise, which we'll get to the how he and Napoleon shared a home, but not at the same time.
Not at the same time, no. But they were really good at being exiled together.
Yeah,
or
on the
separately.
same island.
Okay,
Yeah.
Are you ready? We're at the very last.
Yes. Okay, youngest
brother.
child.
Youngest child, who I enjoy very much. So this is Jerome, baby Jerome. He became the King of Westphalia. Not that exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact edition only. So he also has an American connection.
Yeah. Good. What is it?
So his first wife was Elizabeth Patterson.
Okay.
And basically, he married her because he fled to the United States. I think he actually fled initially to like South America and then made his way back north during like a naval incident during like the Napoleonic Wars. And then he's 19 and then he meets this like 18-year-old and they get married against her father's wishes, against Napoleon's wishes. And Napoleon's like, I need to annul this marriage. You can't be married to an American. I have big plans for all my siblings.
Man.
And she was...
What a loser. Napoleon's annoying.
Oh, he's a the thing to know about Napoleon is that he was a micromanager. Every single part of the empire he knew about, controlled, was deeply invested in, which made him really great in a lot of ways, but probably the shittiest brother ever.
I can't even imagine.
Jerome is involved in a naval incident that he's 19, mind you, and he ends up going up into North America. I think he lands. I'm not quite sure of the details, but he essentially marries a local. He marries a local girl, knocks her up immediately. Napoleon tries to get the Pope to annul the marriage. He's like, this cannot be real. I can't have this in my family. I need to marry him off to other people. I'm trying to do something here for our family. And
I'm the only one who cares about our legacy. And I'm sure the Pope was like, sorry, bro, whenever we do this, something huge happens. So I'm not going to
Well, then guess what? Napoleon takes over Rome. So he decides he has essentially papal powers. That's why that famous painting of Napoleon crowning himself, the story is he took the crown out of the Pope's hand. The Pope was supposed to crown him. Mm-hmm. And he takes it out of his hand essentially to say, no one is higher than me, including the Pope, which medieval history. You know medieval history. Anytime anybody says that they're bigger than the Pope.
That. Last week's episode hasn't come out yet, but it's all about how the Pope and the King just thought they were the best, God's best boy. And, that's like the history of Europe in a nutshell. It's like Pope and King mad at each other. That's all.
That was all of Wolf Hall. It was great.
Oh, Wolf Hall. Dude.
I love Wolf Hall. I know you love Wolf Hall. Anyway, so Jerome marries an American. He knocks her up. And Napoleon, not only, she tries to take a ship so she can have the baby on French soil. She goes into Amsterdam. She's trying to get into France. She's essentially if I have this baby, this is an American 18-year-old. So that's the thinking here.
It's her gap year. She's like, I'm gonna go have Napoleon or a Bonaparte's baby in my gap year.
She got her backpack and her Rick Steves, and she's ready to go.
she's smoking blunts from Amsterdam.
Oh, I wish that for her. No, instead they just never let her get onto the mainland, and they pushed her off to London. So she had her son in London, and Jerome didn't see that son for 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah, Napoleon annulled the marriage himself with his own papal powers. Gross. And so she returned to America with her son. So we're not going to talk about her. We're not going to talk about her son. We're going to talk very quickly about her grandson. Okay. So her grandson. So imagine your mom's an American upstart who gets impregnated by briefly the youngest brother of Napoleon. She has to move back to the U.S., single mom who works 2 jobs, who love her kids and never stops. And so her son's fine. And then he has a son. So this son is pretty savvy. He becomes the U.S. Secretary of the Navy. And then he became the Attorney General.
Was his last name Bonaparte?
Yeah. And so what he decided to do, what his specialty became, is that he brought in suits against trusts. Like famously, he brought in a suit against the American Tobacco Company to break up monopolies.
Whoa.
And so he became called Charlie the Crook Chaser because he was named like Charles Bonaparte. And so in 1908, Bonaparte established the Bureau of Investigation within the Department of Justice.
Stop.
Under the direction of the Attorney General.
You
The BOI
You can't do this to me.
later became
the FBI, right?
the FBI. Napoleon's youngest brother's grandson created
Started.
the FBI.
The FBI. I need a minute. I love this kind of stuff. Ooh, this like little facts about families and like how they all connect. Fascinating. Okay, so thanks to Napoleon, we have the FBI.
A Jersey Devil spotting.
A Jersey Devil sighting.
Carrera Marble and the Academy de Beaux-Arts.
And, you know, what else?
Some George Washington zoo statues. I mean,
dude.
I'm going to just throw that at Napoleon. He gets one.
Yeah, he gets that. Yeah, that's wow. Unbelievable.
The Napoleonic Code, other stuff that doesn't matter.
Right. I need to go look up this Charles Bonaparte really quick just to open it up.
Not attractive. Not a Boniface.
Well, no, none of them are. Oh, yeah, I'm being shallow, but that dude's not cute. Charlie.
I remember my sister
Whoa.
asking me once when I was like 14 or 15. She's like, really mean. And she's like, do you have a crush on Napoleon? Because I had like the big poster and I had all this stuff up. And I just was like, no. But I was like,
would I?
I was like, do I?
Well, why do I?
Yeah. I'm like, he's not attractive, but I love him. And then later I was introduced to Alan Rickman and then I understood it, where it's like, it's not about being attractive. It's about presence.
It's about presence. And it's also, I mean, he's got a little bit of a boyish charm, Napoleon.
Depends what portrait you look at.
I'm looking at a bad one.
Oh, fun fact, that Napoleon crossing the Alps, the most famous painting, Joseph had that in his house in New Jersey.
The original? Oh, look, Bonaparte as a 19-year-old he's not bad. He looks like a goth, like cosplayer. Look
Napoleon.
up. He was age 23. He looks like a vampire in a cute way.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess.
I think I got the one I like the most. I think it's this one.
I think it's that one. I think you should.
You know, I went to Waterloo. I legit went to Waterloo. It was so fun. It was great.
Whoa.
I had a great time. And there's a picture of me with a giant version of that. And I'm like, oh, like the poster in my room.
Oh, that's
and I'm
amazing.
like 27. And I'm like, oh.
Everyone's like, okay. No, dude, I've done very similar, deeply nerdy things. And here's the thing. It's not nerdy. That's interesting.
If you find someone to share it with, it's not nerdy.
Exactly. Which is all that this podcast is about.
Hundo.
So, okay. That was amazing.
That's my tab. That's all I got. That's all I got.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Truly from the bottom of my heart enjoyed that so much. Thank you.
You were the perfect audience, frankly.
None of those reactions were exaggerated. The way you built up to it being the Jersey Devil, because I started knowing. I was like, oh, Prince. Oh no, couldn't even wrap my head around it. By the time you told me, I was like already in full shock.
I love that you knew it was going towards FBI too. I was like, this is a good person to tell this to.
Yeah, it's because I know a lot of rando things, but not enough to like repeat. Anyway, well, thank you for that tab. I suddenly like Napoleon a lot more.
Right? Like he can't be that bad if these are who he grew up with.
King Rabbit. Anyway, so my tab is oh boy, it's one of those ones. And you're a listener of the show, so you know there oftentimes I'm like, oh yeah, I thought I was getting into one thing, but then it like took me down a billion different roads, and I had to really control myself to like, okay, we're not gonna go down that road. Okay, so here it is. I wish I could do this as a two-parter, but I simply would go insane. So I'm gonna be talking about the Sea Peoples. Do you know anything about the Bronze Age?
No.
Me neither. Thank goodness. Oh, you're like, actually, I'm a pro or
a classicist. Yeah,
a classicist, and the Hittite Empire fell because anyway. So this is about the Bronze Age.
Okay.
About a group of people or peoples called the Sea Peoples. And I found my way to this topic through a meme I saw on Instagram. Okay, so the meme, don't have it with me, but it said something along the lines of like, Bronze Age peasants be like, I have my whole life ahead of me. No, you don't. The Sea Peoples are coming. With like a laughing, crying emoji. And I was like, wait, did a Bronze Age peasant make this? So I, of course, had to go to the comments and I was like, who are the Sea Peoples? And everyone in the comments was like, oh, the Atlanteans. They're from Atlantis. Or like, they're aliens. I think they're aliens. And I was like, sorry, what? How does the Bronze Age have anything to do with like ancient aliens? Which I can't stand ancient aliens. I think it's racist. So, of course, it is. It's fully racist. Ancient
How
aliens.
could people ever have done that? They were dumb and not white.
How could brown people build pyramids?
Yeah, I mean,
stack rocks on top of each other in a normal, common way. Anyway,
must have been giants. Must have been cryptids.
Must have been cryptids. The Jersey Devil went over there, built the pyramids. So I, of course, had to be like, who were the Sea People? And that was my first mistake. Josie, that was my first mistake. Okay, in short, the Sea People are what historians and anthropologists refer to as a mysterious group of people who came in boats and attacked Egypt and other Mediterranean societies in 1200 BC, the same time as what is called the Late Bronze Age collapse, which is apparently these people, these mysterious people that came from the sea, made city-state after city-state after city-state fall.
Were they their Vikings?
Well, that's what a lot of people were thinking. And I was like, they had to be like raiders, right? And it's mysterious because we just don't know very much about them, simply because the Bronze Age, like the entire region fell. So of course there's not going to be very much written about them. But, right. So this sounds amazing. And of course I understand why people are like aliens, because like the accounts of Sea People are really cryptic. They're like, they came with boats and fire and like all this like really creepy stuff. So I was like, well, who are these people? Are you familiar with the ages, like the Metal Ages and how they classify them?
Again, we have to get back to civs here, where most of my history of that time. So I'm like, when is this with the ancient Greeks? Is this like Pythagoras? Like, is this going to be?
This is pre-ancient Greek. So this is before.
It's like Mesopotamia. Like, where are we?
It's kind of in. So there's the Stone Age. There's the Neolithic. There's the Stone Age, the Copper Age, the Neolithic, and then the Bronze. And the Stone Age lasted like 3 million years. No joke, 3 million years. And then after this, the technology started, going quicker. They last a lot less. So the Bronze Age ended around 1200 BC, which, if you know anything about the Greeks and the Romans, they kind of started emerging like 500, 600 years later.
Yeah. That's where my knowledge picks up.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're before my time.
There's this whole gap in there between the Bronze Age and the rise of the Greek Empire and the Romans and stuff. That's kind of dark. Like, we don't really know we don't have much about it. And so they call it the Greek Dark Ages because after the fall of all these cities and city-states, that's what it was. Everyone went back to village life. There was no more of these massive, complex city systems and stuff. So I'm going to be focusing on the Bronze Age in the Eastern Mediterranean specifically, as well as the Levant, North Africa, and a lot of the Middle East. So we know most of this due to these 2 French Egyptologists. I didn't even write their names because I kind of didn't realize that
They're colonialists. Who cares?
They're colonialists. They were like, we're going to go and take things from these tombs, aka grave rob. And they discovered the graves of a lot of pharaohs and kings. And France at the time in the 1800s was just like, we love Egypt. And as you can see from a lot of their own architecture, we're trying to like make it look like that. And it was very, very overrun with French people specifically.
Napoleon went to Egypt, yes. They're like, oh yeah. So that was one of his first campaigns. So
Napoleon.
Yeah, well, I know.
Great.
It all comes back to Napoleon.
it all comes back to colonialism.
Yeah, for real though. So what did
And
these Frenchies find?
These archaeologists discovered that there was a lot of like ruins and city-state ruins that they couldn't quite explain. So I'm going to backtrack because the archaeologists found a bunch of stuff. So we'll get there again in a minute. So have you, in Civ, now that I know you've played Civ, there's like Hattusha, the city-state Hattusha, and Tyre, and I guess I didn't write them down. But all those city-states that you are like neighbors with in Civ 5 are all named after a lot of these city-states that were here before these big empires came. And there's a complete collapse of society in and along the Eastern Mediterranean. All of these city-states fell around the same time, which confused archaeologists because they're like, what happened? They weren't just dinky little towns either. They were massive. They were advanced. They had systems and governments put in place. They had what was known as the palace economy, which was a centralized government that would redistribute resources based on the taxes they received. Very much like we are today. We are a kind of a palace economy today. And yeah, we're not going to fall. We'll never. And they were all allies with each other. So they were like this really amazing federation of city-states that were all part of a lot of them were part of the Hittite Empire, which I don't know anything about. And these kings, they would all write each other letters, like cuneiform letters, and like the kings were kind of friends. And anyway, we know a lot of this because, the city-states were like Byblos and Ugarit and Hattusha and Troy.
Yeah.
Those were a few of them. Anyway, so these French Egyptologists ended up finding these huge inscriptions. So I'm going to send you a picture of this inscription that they found in this mortuary complex. So they found this.
Ooh, look at that. That would be a great tattoo.
Wouldn't it? So it's this huge battle scene of all these people on boats being shot at by Egyptians. So yeah, this huge inscription they find, and it was from this account of these sea people referred to as like the northerners, or the people that came from the sea, or the nations of the sea, which creepy. All those things sound creepy. And it was written by the pharaoh at the time that defeated these sea people, because the only reason we have this is because Egypt did not fall, unlike all the other cities. So yes, so they have surviving people because they were like excited about their victory. Like we conquered a bunch of these people. Like who cares?
And all our friends fell. Like everyone else we know. Yeah.
We also found a bunch of They also found a bunch of. I was there. They also found a bunch of like letters from these city-states asking Egypt for help, like pleading. Like it kind of reminds me of this scene in Lord of the Rings, in the Mines of Moria, where Gandalf is reading their last like message. It's like they're coming. That is the same chills. I got the same kind of chills when I was reading some of these letters that were like, we're starving. When you get here, we'll be gone. We are going to be gone. Like stuff like that, where it's just like just imagining a massive government falling and then they're gone.
I just wonder if it was like siege warfare, because I assume they would have had walls at this point around these like palace nations. Like that's kind of Troy's deal.
Right. We're going to figure that out toward the end here, because so far what we know is that a bunch of people came from the sea and attacked all these cities. And so these inscriptions describe them. They actually name them. So they say these are the people. The quote, it said, they came with fire prepared before them toward Egypt. Their main support was Peliset, Jeker, Sekelesh, Denyen, and Weshesh. These lands were united, and they laid their hands upon the land as far as the circle of the earth. Their hearts were confident, full of their plans. So the pharaoh writes that there was at least 6,000 of them, and they were all united under this main, like Libyan. He said it was the Libyan king that was uniting them. But from all accounts, they were actually just kind of these weird, loose confederations of people. And no one could really, and they came out of nowhere, and no one could really figure out exactly where they were coming from. And they had these names for them, but then sometimes those names would change, and sometimes like other people wouldn't even say those names. So they think those names that were listed as were part of something they called the 9 bows, like the 9 like bows, like a bow and arrow. Yeah. And there was a bunch of different other names included in there, like this place, the one's called Karkia, which is they think is modern day Turkey because it sounds very similar.
Ooh.
Yeah. Peliset, which is modern day Palestine.
Ooh.
Shekelesh, which some say is Sicily. Sherden, Sardinians, and Weshesh. No one knows anything about the Weshesh, but they think it might be some like they think there's like a connection between like the Bible. There's some biblical thing in there. And then Ekwesh and Denyen, which were Greek, although the Ekwesh, they were reportedly circumcised, and Egypt was like, whoa. When they only do that because they cut everybody's penises off after they beat them, and they were like, what's with these ones? Yeah.
What a way to find out.
What a way to find out about circumcision. And so they don't. The Greeks were not uncircumcised, or the Greeks were uncircumcised. So that's why they're like, maybe not Greek. Anyway, then there's the Tyrker, which were possibly from Crete or Palestine, and no one really knows. So there's just these random like people, and they could make these connections through the pottery, which was so cool. The similarities of the pottery, and then also how they were portrayed, like their headdresses and their armor and their ships and their sigils. They could kind of make these connections. So they weren't total mysteries. Sorry, am I just talking endlessly?
No, I'm just like, oh my God, no, it's like tropes where it's like, this is how we communicate that there is a singular person or singular group doing this. And it's so interesting to me that they came from like the presumption is that they come from some of these like island nations like Corsica or Sicily or, you know, different, like, I mean, like Palestine and I'm trying to remember one of the other ones you said, like those are all ocean facing, you know, and like, could
They're
easily just, but
seafaring.
Yeah, I was just like, if they had such good communications, it's interesting that they didn't know or they didn't announce where they were from or were proud of where they were from. Like, it feels very anonymous and random, like a little bit more Viking-like, where it's like, yeah, some are from Ireland and some are from Sweden and some are from Iceland, you know, and like that's why we just call them Vikings because they're just a band of just different types of people that other people have no idea what they are, so they just give them this general term.
Big name. And I think there is a lot of that because there was some that they could identify. But like Vikings, people have wondered if these were like names of a job. Because like Viking is the title rather than the people.
I'm like, so, what? Does Viking mean that? I don't know anything about Vikings.
Viking is a title, is a job. So yeah, they were...
Like one who looks amazing at all times while slaying people? Is that what it means?
Viking. To be a Viking is a job. You're like, I'm going to go be a Viking. And the overpopulation in Denmark and Sweden at the time contributed to a lot of young men being like, we want our own land. There's too many people here, so we're going to go take other people's lands.
I'm a really bad Swede right now. I'm like, I did not know that.
I only know that because of this podcast. I did something on the Vikings and I'm like, interesting. But so they think maybe a lot of scholars at the time in the 1800s were like, well, because those French scholars were like, okay, so there's these sea people. They must have been the reason all these cities fell. And that was the accepted story for a long time. And ever since then, it's just been constant arguing among scholars about who these people were, why they showed up, how they took down these cities. And if you look at all these inscriptions, you'll see there's not just soldiers, but families of women and children. So not in this one particular because I couldn't find it.
I'm like, where's
anywhere.
Waldoing right now? I'm like, where are they?
I wrote this part being like, oh, I'll have the picture by then, but I don't because I couldn't find it. So
you're fine.
But there are inscriptions that if you look closely, there's not just soldiers, there's families and women and children. Supplies, cookware, living stuff, and permanent things. And there's this quote from one of the inscriptions that says, the wretched fallen chief of Libya, Merier, son of Dead, dope name, has fallen upon the country of Tehenu with his bowmen, taking the best of every warrior and every man of war of his country. He has brought his wife and his children, leaders of his camp, and he has reached the western boundary. So they noted it as like, they're bringing their families. This is unusual.
When you told me that all of these nation states failed, my first thought was climate disaster, right? Like, that's usually what kind of happens. Is like, there's no crops for several years. Everything falls apart. There are no taxes to get. Government falls. And then I was like, maybe these are people who are fleeing a climate disaster. Like, there's some cold spell or something. And so now that you've told me that they're bringing, like, their whole family, that means there's nowhere to go back to. So
ding, ding, ding.
I want to...
You are 100% correct. That these people, they are not the reason these cities fell. They are a symptom of a larger problem.
Yes. I feel so smart.
Oh, yeah. You did what like a bunch of 1800s French dudes could not. Use your brain. So again, there's so much argument about this. Even now, people are like, well, they could have just been raiders or like, you know, but there's that little clue of there being families involved. That's like, there's no country for them to go back to. This is their only option. And what are you going to do if you have no other option? You're going to find the weak into city-states, and you're going to take them. So I can't go into all the ins and outs of like what exactly was going on because there was a lot of things and a lot of like speculation of like all this stuff. Why'd they come? Anyway, And I also don't know what I'm talking about. So, but most importantly, I don't know what I'm talking about.
You were like, do you know all the ages? And I was like, oh. So no, you're great. You're doing great.
Dude, I asked you if Napoleon was before or after the French Revolution.
You never know. It's messy.
So there is proof that there was a devastating drought and famine. And usually droughts and famine come from climate change. This would make
like
sense.
Volcanoes.
That too.
I don't know. Yeah.
There was also a volcanic eruption like 40 years before in Iceland, which probably most likely, contributed to a volcanic winter and would fail. These crops fail. And when that happens, people are starving and their immune systems go down, and plague can spread way easier. So there's also a pandemic. So these are all these, a lot of people are like, oh, it was this and this and this. And in my opinion, my uneducated opinion, I think it was all of them. I think that these things all feed into each other. And these terrifying raiders from the sea were not raiders. They were climate refugees.
Yeah.
And they think that maybe even they brought sickness too. So these city-states were already having these huge issues. Like there's no crops, everyone's sick. And so these cities were like on the brink already. So of course somebody comes and attacks and they're gone. They're gone. We like to think, sorry, I got all serious. We like to think that we're never going to fall, that, cities can never fall or empires, but literally in the span of 50 years, multiple ones can fall.
Did they think that was the timeline of it?
About 50, yeah. It was between 1177. They say that 1177 BC is the year that everything kind of changed. And then through to the end of that into like the 1200s, then, yeah.
That's gnarly to think it's in one generation. Like, right. That would be really scary.
So these sea people, a son of one of these sea people who then now goes and settles on one of these old city-state ruins, will remember stories his dad told him about their other country that they fled from, while also living amongst other people that were there before. It's like, it's just this crazy, like, 1 or 2 generations, and that's all it took. I think I started this wanting to find out about aliens, and if they're aliens or whatever, maybe it's spooky. Hold on, I got ahead of myself. So there's the pandemic, the volcano, the climate change, and then overpopulation in cities due to all the farmland being ruined and full of drought. So everyone moves toward the city center. And so there's this mismanagement of resources. There's an overburdening on the system, this beautiful, nice system, And during the pandemic, we saw this start to happen in some places,
It makes me wonder, too, because Egypt has such a completely different setup with the Delta and has like always been the breadbasket of the world for all eternity. So I could see them either escaping or, like in sieves, having really great grain silos, that they probably relied on because they were advanced in that way. So
they were.
Yeah, I could see them mitigating a climate disaster for at least a generation. I mean, maybe they wouldn't have made it longer than that. I don't know.
Egypt's still around. That's
Nailing
the thing.
It.
And same with Persia and other like surrounding areas is that they weathered it, but these like ocean nations did not.
Yeah.
And I think it's because Egypt and Persia, they're a very central location. They're not easily attacked from, there's mountains, there's rivers, there's not these huge ocean. It's much harder to conquer those places, I think, than others, especially Egypt, because it's just such a weird, like, it's like a desert nation, but there's these oases, there's just this interesting, like, no one can survive there except Egyptians, you know what I mean? Where they get it. Anyway, they survived. They were weakened. This drought did hit them. Everything hit them. Climate change did too, but they were much more weak, but they did survive it, which is why we know about this. So there's also this theory that I'm kind of obsessed with and is also deeply terrifying, called general systems collapse theory. Have you heard of this?
No, tell me.
Ooh. So it's by this guy named Joseph Tainter, which just
poor man.
Bad name.
He's like, everything is gonna die too, especially Billy, who made fun of my name.
It's pronounced Tainter.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, Mr. Tainter is just not a good name. But he has a really compelling theory that he proposes that societal collapse is imminent, especially among societies that have a complex system of like inner workings and government, and it to the point where it gets so advanced that they have forgotten how to not be that way, and they are no longer sustainable. And so when they do fall, it is violent and it shoots them straight back into like small village days. Yeah, the look on your face is exactly how I feel.
I mean, like Rome was invaded by barbarians, and like there's goats in the streets, and it's just like everyone's looking at aqueducts, being like, "What are those?" You know, and you're like,
exactly.
"Yeah."
It's, they had water in them, but that doesn't matter now.
No idea.
It's exactly like that. The more complex, and this isn't proven, but this is a proposal that the more complex a society gets, the harder it will fall, and the more imminently that fall will come. And that's not something we have to worry about.
What was the name of the theory? It was general?
It's general systems collapse.
That means
theory.
Can apply to anybody, anytime, any place.
And he's gone. I could have done a whole tab on this one. He's like applied it to a lot of different scenarios that are like, oh, good, okay. So what happened with all these cities? They were overpopulated. They were overly complex. They collapsed, and they all went down into what is called the Greek Dark Age, which is these small village communities that started from pretty much nothing, which is wild. That you could just lose that in a generation.
Yeah, they just have their victory gardens, and they're deeply suspicious, and it's just...
Exactly. We got to start gardening, you guys. That'll save us from general systems collapse. But I was thinking about the power grid, and I'm not trying to be freaking out, but like, when the power goes out, you're suddenly like, oh no, I don't know how to survive. How would I live here?
Oh, I know. The dependency is beyond what they were dealing with. They just had a really good system of like governance, but they all probably still had some like ancestral knowledge, so that when they were booted out, they could start up a little something or other.
We don't have that.
You saw what happened during the pandemic? We're like, where do I get groceries from? Like,
No, it's like it's really chilling to think about. And I'm smiling because I'm scared. But anyway, this whole thing brought me to realize that the Sea Peoples aren't really a mystery. We have their names, and that's about it. They were once thought to have caused the late Bronze Age's collapse, but really they were a symptom of the larger issues like climate change, famine, disease. They weren't ancient aliens, sadly. Sorry, everybody. Or some supernatural force, but they were climate refugees, forced to find a better life. And they were perhaps running from their own societal collapse. They rebuilt on the remnants of these old cities. And the bigger story to me here is that the classic cycle of the rise and fall of empires. It's like, why do we prescribe our modern day thinking onto these people? Like, oh, they must have been this mysterious force. No, they were climate refugees, bro. That's it.
That's not as fun. But although the name Nine Bows is pretty sick.
Isn't that cool? Yeah,
it's good. It's really cool. Stuck. I'm like,
apparently the Egyptians would give their enemies nicknames like that, like story-esque nicknames. Anyway, none of these civilizations last. Nothing lasts. And, you can be as powerful as you want, but when the crops fail, even the king has to run. So that's my tab. That's my tab.
As like a lover of, as I said, all three of my tabs are about like imperial history. And it's because I am such an anti-imperialist.
Me too.
And anti-colonialist. And I enjoy their history so much because they're so tacky. Yes. I enjoy them because they're just so gaudy and dumb. Yes. And like they're my Kardashians. Like they're just my Kardashians. Like the Bonaparte family is my Kardashians. Like I'm not saying these people should be president. I'm not saying these people should be in charge. But I watch the hell out of it. Like I love it. So
and you watch them make a bunch of dumb mistakes that are gonna lead to their downfall because it's just so to me it's like kind of comforting. I kind of felt a weird comfort knowing that whatever horrible system someone might be a part of, but it's going to fall someday. And it's not going to be good. And don't get me wrong, I don't want that to happen to anybody, but it's happened before. Life goes on.
I feel like I should represent Kaveh here too, where it's like if you think about Iran, where you're like, like we're going to get rid of this old system that does not work. We are psyched to figure something new out. What is this new thing? We don't like this new thing.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Within a year, it's just...
Oh, gone. No. And it hasn't gotten fixed. And so, it's interesting, too, where you're like, oh, like, someone please just collapse me already. And then you see what the collapse is. And then you're like, oh, no, J.D. Vance is president? Like...
This is the dumbest collapse. Well, and it's also like, I will say this, maybe this is just even sadder, but like, this is supposed to be a funny podcast, whatever. But this got me thinking that like, yes, this will all happen eventually to everybody. but that doesn't mean we're not going to witness a lot of suffering. That's what we can rely on. Depending, based on history, there's just going to be a lot of suffering. So everybody take care of each other. I don't know.
I fall asleep every night listening to the History of Rome podcast because when I hear about the suffering of previous, like even when I said like, oh, that was only within one generation, there would be people who had like 300 years of instability. Right. And they had never known what life would be like if things were well run. Like that was their entire human experience, was exorbitant taxation and conscription and raids. And that was life. That was all they knew. Right. And like, I don't want to, like you said it, and I'm going to say it too. It's like, I'm comforted by it because it doesn't feel singular, and I feel so safe in my little bubble of peace with like my sleeping children and like my sleeping husband. And I'm just like, I'm safe. This is not happening right now. But is it?
Is it? Not for us. It's not
Not
happening.
for us, not for right now. But the climate aspect of it is.
Yes.
And do you watch Cosmos, the new one with Neil deGrasse Tyson?
I don't.
There's a CGI hall of extinction that he walks through. Oh. And he goes through all the different eras, all the different scenes, like the something scene, like this is the time the dinosaurs were extinct. Like this is the time that we had one here that lasted this, and like you can mark it, essentially on the Earth in geology. And then he starts talking about the Anthropocene.
That's
Anthropocene.
That's us. Anthropocene, I think.
Thank you for rescuing me.
And
so, but he has also another hall called the Hall of Tomorrow, which is if we fix things, what the Hall of Tomorrow could look like. So he does a really good job of comparing the two timelines of, one, we withdraw from the Paris Accords and we drill, baby, drill. And, everybody goes back to eating meat full time because they can now. And anyway, so I feel the nihilism, but the future of tomorrow was so pretty.
Yeah, well, of course, because what could it be? Like, we don't have to repeat the suffering. That's the thing. We don't have to.
Evolution's pretty cool. I mean, we could evolve. I don't know. I'm down if you are.
I am too. I think we should fix all the problems in the world. I don't know.
You got to 10,000 feet and you saw all of it.
I saw all of it, and suddenly I was like, oh no. Okay. But it's kind of like that thing when, I don't know if this is how you felt when you were pregnant, but when I was pregnant, I was like, okay, I feel really alone, but literally every woman in history has done this. And I feel like a weird kinship with them in that very human thing of having a baby. And I feel like this is kind of similar, where I can look back and be like, okay, a huge society of people were also going through something similar. That, pandemics, or like when it was the pandemic, I was like, oh yeah, this is, one of my special interests is the bubonic plague. And so I was like, oh, there's a lot of overlap here and here and here. And it was weirdly comforting to remember like what they did during the bubonic plague. And there's just these overlaps. And weirdly enough, I just find this weirdly comforting and scary at the same time. And anyway,
you don't even have to go that far back. I mean, when because I gave birth to my first son March 18th of 2020.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm responsible. I did not plan this. Like I was not trying to bring my child into a plague. Like I really wasn't.
No.
I was being responsible. And I'm telling this to my mom, like over Zoom, because we're all in lockdown. And my mom's like, you know what? When your brother Jonas was born, that was the same week as Chernobyl. And they told me that this like, nuclear cloud is coming over the United States. And I have this like brand new baby. And I'm like, and there's a what coming? And I was like, this is like the history of childbirth. Like this is
world.
The world. Like what you just said is exactly right, where it's like you feel like you're doing your best. And also none of these things are caused by women, because we all give birth and we don't want this child to die. That's literally the only thing we do all day is to make sure that they don't die.
And then you look at stuff like this and those women and children on those boats with those people invading. It's just like there are babies there. It's just the cycle. Anyway, I wanted to be more fun, but, I wasn't. Sorry, and welcome to the podcast again.
You know what's fun about it, though? There was a little hint about Atlantis in there. That was pretty good for a minute.
Dude, that would have been so fun. Maybe I should have followed that. Then I would have gotten weird people on YouTube, and I just got out of YouTube jail of being hurt,
Was that Aristotle that thought Atlantis was real? Which one of those Greek fellas?
Ooh, I don't remember. One of them did, though. He was
one of them real did.
Really big proponent of Atlantis being real, which, you know what? It'd be awesome if it were. Imagine how much fun the world would have if we found out Atlantis was real.
I feel like it was probably an island that just got the icebergs melted again, and then it just took it over. I'm so boring. I'm sorry.
No, I went into this wanting to make it all boring because I was like, there's no such thing as ancient aliens, but there is such thing as a human suffering and climate collapse. So.
There's your opening quote. There's your sizzle quote for the top.
There it is. On that note, I'm going to land this plane and I'm going to say it's time for us to close our tabs. What sound should we use? Your choice.
I think a bunch of bow and arrows hitting it. Ooh, I think that's a lot of fun. That's my lasting imagery from that mural you sent me. I'm like, I kind of want to have that as like an iPhone background for a bit or something.
Okay. Yeah. We'll do some bow and arrows just hitting into. Yeah. All right, Alyssa. Take it away. And will you count down?
Yeah,
you're the guest.
What an honor. All right.
Of course.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, close.
Yay. So now we're going to move on to listener mail. And I chose one for you. It should be pretty fun. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm excited. Hi again, Hannah and Kaveh. This is Blake from Seattle. Hi, Blake. With a tab about this. How the story of Seattle's first queer nightclub and its founder. Delightful. Shelly, it's probably not delightful. It's always like the first person to do anything interesting is like, dragged across the coals. But let's see what she did.
Exactly.
Shelly Bowman was a striptease dancer who left Chicago to travel and perform, eventually settling in Seattle. On July 14th, that's Bastille Day.
Bastille Day, yeah.
Yeah, after me came the floods. Sorry. So we're the worst. On July 14th, 1970, she participated in the city's Bastille Day parade. Sorry, Blake. I'm sorry.
Dude, this is just how the podcast goes. We jump to conclusions before we finish any sentence.
And I'm neurotypical, and I still just got excited. So
I don't know if you are.
Maybe not.
Kidding.
Maybe not.
Just
I don't know.
Kidding.
Anyway, so here we go. She participated in the city's Bastille Day parade when calamity occurred. A confetti cannon was prepared for the festivities, but thanks to Seattle's chronic drizzle, the confetti inside merged into a single solid projectile waiting to fire. Oh my God, it was like plaster of Paris. It was like probably that like rock hard.
It was just a rock.
By accident, the cannon went off and struck Shelly in the abdomen during the parade. She was seriously injured and had to have her left leg amputated during treatment.
Awful.
She get like gangrene or something? Or
Must have.
I don't know. They haven't covered this on The Pit yet, so I don't know.
No, I haven't watched that yet because I don't want to be anxious anymore. I don't want to be more anxious.
My husband works in an ER, so it's fine.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So we watch it, and then he pauses, and he's like, they would never do that. Actually,
like, okay.
Or he's like, actually, let me tell you this story. And so we watch it over 100 hours. Nevertheless, Shelly persisted.
Yes.
She carried out a lawsuit, good for her, against the parade and the city, winning a $330,000 settlement.
Nice.
Bowman used the winnings to start and operate her own club, naming it Shelly's Leg. She's a broad with a sense of humor. That's great. Not sure how to transition to this detail. Oh my gosh.
Oh, no.
You could be on the pod easily.
I've met Blake.
Oh, you know Blake? Oh, good.
Well, I've met. He came to our booth in Seattle, and we gave him one of the Gwen Stefani tribute toilet tattoos, and he put it on the spot. Anyway, using a baby wipe that I had.
Okay, you're in the gang. Not sure how to transition to this detail, but on December 1st, 1975, the disco was interrupted by a capsizing fuel truck, which unleashed a wave of flaming fuel at the surrounding block. Is that a hate crime? It might be. I don't know.
Feels like it.
According to her wiki, this is one of 2 major fires Shelly survived in her lifetime.
What?
This is the unsinkable Molly Brown of gay nightclubs. Like,
dude, that is a... If you said that to me and said that's a book, I'd be like, sold.
Unfortunately, the bar later closed due to financial disputes, but remains a historic spot for Seattleites. Anyway, when I heard this story at last night's bar trivia, I knew I had to send it in. Absolutely. Oh, I will see you guys at the Gwen Stefani tribute toilet. Blake, A+, excellent, perfect tab.
Dude, thank you, Blake. This is solid. And I will see you there as well. I hope that tattoo is still on. I'm just kidding. That would be insane. So mine is Elena from Rome. Hi, guys. I recently sent another tab, but I was talking about cats and Shakespeare in the Discord and was reminded about a wild theory that Shakespeare was in fact an Italian called Guglielmo Crollalanza. The name is literally the translation of William Shakespeare. Apparently, a medium in Venice in the 30s said that Shakespeare had communicated to him his real name and that he'd run away from Italy because he was a Protestant. There's a possibility that Shakespeare got his information about Italian culture and geography from Michelangelo and Giovanni Florio, a father and son living in London around that time. Michelangelo had fled from Italy because he converted to Protestantism. It's even been theorized that they co-authored his works, but the Crollalanza theory has no actual historical basis. Yeah, it's probably the Italian people he knew that gave him his interest in Italy. However, some believers of this theory almost caused an international incident in 2016 when they crashed the British Embassy's exhibition Shakespeare Lives in Italy, claiming that the British were appropriating the Sicilian author.
Right on, man.
The British have appropriated so many things, but we should at least leave them Shakespeare. That's so true. Hope you enjoyed this crazy theory. Love from Rome, Elena.
At the beginning of this, when she said, I was talking about cats and Shakespeare in Discord, and it was a crazy, wild theory, I thought it was going to be that Shakespeare was a cat.
Dude.
Like,
amazing. With a typewriter. Have you seen that meme that was like, you know how it's like, if you put monkeys in a room with typewriters, one of them will end up writing Hamlet?
Yeah.
Someone was like, by the way, that's about us. We are those monkeys, and one of us did write Hamlet. Made me laugh because that's true.
Oh, that's the truest thing I ever heard.
I know.
Because we're just weird apes. Every time I don't like somebody and I am to be in a conversation with them, I just remember that we're really weird apes. Like, we're just the weirdest apes. And all of a sudden I look at them like they're kind of like a zoo animal that like is just kind of weird. And then they're really interesting because I was like, if an orangutan was being like, oh yeah, you know, like crypto, I'd be like, oh, like that's weird.
Why would an orangutan be saying this?
Why?
That's funny because it's so true. We're just apes that have way big brains. You know, our brains got big.
Yeah, weird apes.
Big brain.
Or if I do something wrong at work, like I don't have like the right permission for them, I was like, this was made by a weird ape.
I'm going to start doing that.
It helps.
I always think about aliens, like seeing our planet and being like, it's an angry ape planet. We're not going there.
Hundo.
Anyway. If you want to submit your own listener mail, you can email 500opentabs@gmail.com. That's 500 the number. And you can also follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at 500opentabs. And please share this with your family. If any of this reminded you of anybody, send it their way. If you have a friend named Josie, tell them to write in. Or, you know, whatever. Send us something. You can also follow us on Patreon, YouTube, Discord, and we will link all of that in the show notes. And Josie, thank you. Thank you so much. That was so delightful.
Thank you. Thank you for making me now go and lay in bed and be like, Bronze Age, what was that about? Like, when did, like, Troy fall? Is that, like, the same thing?
Yes. You should go read about Troy because it might have fallen because of the sea people.
And not because of Odysseus.
It might also not be true at all, but...
I know. And once you find out that the Odyssey is like not actually true, because like they teach it like it's true, and then you're
like Troy might not have existed. No, but they think it might. Anyway,
sorry, we just started a whole nother tab.
That's just. Oh, also, if you want to hear us talk about all sorts of other stuff that we're going to cut out, Patreon. So much of it is going to be cut out, and that's fine. It's going to be extra Patreon. We can complain about society, and it'll be on there. It'll be great. I will say, I'm so glad that Kaveh has other friends that are just clones of each other. Because it means that I have immediate friends whenever he introduces me to someone, I'm like, oh yeah. Have you met his friend Kristen?
Oh.
Just us. It's just us.
It's just us.
Just another one.
It's just
another one of us.
I feel that when I hear these listener tabs, like I'll just be listening to the pod and I'll hear one and I'm like, yeah,
it's us.
I could have sent that easy. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, and keep it Josie.
I'm going to keep it Josie. I'm going to keep it. I can't help it.
You can't help it. You literally have no choice.
I try my best to live up to the Josie that everybody else is doing.
You're doing it. You are that's the thing. You are the.
I'm the scale?
You're the scale, yeah. You and Josie are the scam.
Well, yeah. Well, everyone,
Anyway,
get to my level.
get to Josie's level. Anyway, thanks again. Keep it Josie, and I'll see you guys next week. Kaveh will be back next week. I never know how to end these because...
He's going to be spun out.
Do you think?
It's like the first thing you do at your like new spot is you like set up your office and you feel like yourself and you put up your stuff and your art, and that'll be good. It'll be good for him to nest his little podcast space. So
anyway, we're starting to talk again. I'm going to press stop on this and just fade it out.